On the day my sister married the man who once swore he would wait for me, I sat locked in a storage shed, starving and forgotten. 7 days later I died with only a moldy bun and bitter water in my stomach. But when I opened my eyes again I was 15, 1 week before it all began. This time I won't beg. I won't endure. And I will never again be the expendable daughter. The summer of 1969 was the season my world collapsed. I was Clara Wu, 15 years old, daughter of General Marcus Wu, a man once admired in the military district. Our family's name carried weight and my mother, Madame Lien Wu, lived like a swan on a tranquil lake, graceful, admired, untouched. My elder sister, Sophia Wu, was the jewel of the family, always praised for her beauty and education. Me. I was the second daughter, quieter, more ordinary, content with the warmth of home and the promise of my fiancé, Julian Chen. I thought life would always remain that way. It was a stifling evening when everything shattered. A sharp knock echoed through the compound. Soldiers in dark uniforms appeared, their faces expressionless. "Commander Wu," the leader announced, "by order of the District Investigation Unit, you are to accompany us. Your conduct is under review." The words hit me like ice water. My father straightened, his posture rigid even in disgrace. Understood. He didn't look at me, didn't even reach for my mother's trembling hand. He simply walked out between the soldiers, disappearing into the night. That was the last time I saw him in uniform. By dawn, the verdict was sealed. My father was stripped of rank, accused of negligence, his record blackened. The Wu family was ordered to leave the district compound and report to a labor farm. I remember gripping the iron gate as soldiers barked orders for us to move. My mother wept behind her silk handkerchief. Sophia pressed her lips together, pale but composed. "Don't make a scene, Clara," she hissed at me. "It's humiliating enough already." The labor farm was nothing like the manicured lawns we once knew. The air smelled of sweat and damp soil. Rows of mud huts leaned under sagging roofs. Children with dirt-streaked faces stared at us, whispering. Our hut had 2 straw mats and a stool. No servants. No polished floors. Just mud and straw. The farm leader wasted no time. Everyone works. Men plow. Women weed. Children over 12 carry water or join the fields. No exceptions. That was how I, pampered daughter of a military commander, found myself bent over rows of weeds before sunrise, my palms blistering, my back burning under the merciless sun. My father plowed behind an ox, sweat dripping down his temples. My mother, once known for her delicate hands, now carried baskets of weeds. Sophia? She always seemed spared, too delicate, my mother said. She stayed near the hut, doing the lightest chores, her clothes somehow cleaner than mine. The division of affection cut deeper than the labor. "Clara," my mother told me one evening as she wrung out Sophia's blouse, "you're strong. You can bear more. Sophia is fragile. You must protect her." Strong. The word tasted like ashes. My palms bled from blisters, my knees ached from kneeling in the fields, my stomach growled from half rations. But still they looked at me as the expendable daughter. When my father returned from the fields, Sophia would flutter to him, damp cloth in hand. "You've worked so hard, father. Let me wipe your brow." His stern face would soften. "Good girl, Sophia. You've always been considerate." Me. If I stumbled in late, exhausted and mud-streaked, he would scowl. "Lazy child. Look at your sister. She never complains." I would bite my tongue until it bled, swallowing words I knew no one wanted to hear. It was during one of those long days, hauling water under the blazing sky, that Sophia approached me. Her ribbon-tied hair gleamed, her blouse spotless. "You know," she said lightly, "Father's downfall is his own fault. If he hadn't been incompetent, we wouldn't be here." I froze, the bucket handle biting into my palm. "He's our father." "How can you say that?" Sophia shrugged. "Sometimes to survive you have to cut ties. Mother and I, we had no choice. If we hadn't distanced ourselves we might have been dragged down further." Her words slithered into me like poison. I stared at her, my chest burning. At that moment I realized something cruel. In my parents' eyes, Sophia could do no wrong. If survival demanded sacrifice, I would be the first one offered. That night, lying on the straw mat, I stared at the ceiling and clenched my fists. For the first time, a bitter thought took root. Perhaps they didn't love me at all. The days stretched into weeks. My skin darkened under the sun, my hands roughened, my body weakened. Yet every time I faltered, my father's voice lashed me like a whip. "Clara, don't disgrace me. Work harder." I swallowed my tears, forcing my body to obey. But as I watched Sophia sit in the shade, her delicate hands unscarred, our parents smiling at her, the resentment in my chest hardened into something unshakable. I was the daughter who sacrificed, who bent her back under the weight of labor. And yet I was the one forgotten, invisible, unloved. That was the beginning of the hatred that would one day consume me. Julian Chin had once been the light of my world. I still remembered the lantern-lit evening when he held my hand and whispered, "No matter what happens, Clara, I'll wait for you. When you return, I'll marry you." Those words had carried me through sleepless nights in the labor camp. They had been my one fragile lifeline. But words are nothing when tested by time. It was a sticky autumn afternoon when I finally saw him again. I had scraped together courage and walked into the town, where Julian now lived after completing his studies. He met me in the courtyard of his family's home. He wore a crisp white shirt, neatly pressed, his hair styled with careful precision. His hands, once rough from childhood chores, were soft again, hands of someone who had never bent under a plow or carried water buckets. When his eyes fell on me, I saw it, the flicker of disdain. My skin was tanned from the sun, my hands scarred with calluses. I was no longer the girl he once courted in candlelit gardens. "Julian," I said softly, voice trembling, "it's me." He gave a faint, polite nod. "Clara." There was no warmth in his tone. I forced a smile. "I haven't heard from you in so long. But I knew you'd keep your word." Julian's eyes hardened. "Claire, let's not pretend. Things have changed." My heart thudded painfully. "What do you mean?" He looked away as if the sight of me pained him. "Let's call off the engagement. You've been gone too long. You've changed. I'm a university graduate now. You didn't even finish high school. We're not a match anymore." The words struck like a whip. I stumbled back. "Not a match. You promised me." "I was young," he interrupted coldly. I need a wife who suits me. Sophia does. You don't." For a moment I thought I'd misheard. "Sophia?" "Yes." His lips curved almost tenderly. "She's educated, refined. A proper match." My knees weakened. My own sister. And then, as if to twist the knife deeper, Sophia appeared. She wore a pale blue blouse, her hair tied with a ribbon. She looked untouched by hardship, her cheeks smooth, her eyes calm. "Clara," she said softly, feigning pity, "don't make this harder. Julian and I, we're in love. I'll take care of him." I stared at them both, my breath caught in my throat. The man I had clung to, the sister I had endured labor for. They stood together, united against me. I should have left then. But I didn't. Perhaps I still hoped they'd realize their cruelty. Perhaps I was too stubborn to walk away. Instead, I attended their wedding. The banquet hall glittered with chandeliers. The scent of roast duck and wine filled the air. Guests laughed, toasting, praising the union of Sophia Wu and Julian Chin. Me. I sat in the farthest corner, so far from the stage that their smiles blurred into silhouettes. My bowl of rice was cold, untouched. But the whispers were sharp, carrying clearly across the room. "That's Clara, isn't it? The one Julian was engaged to first." "Yes. But really, look at her now. Dark skin, rough hands. No wonder he chose Sophia. Poor thing. Humiliated by her own sister. What a shame." I lowered my head, my cheeks burning. Every word was a blade. On stage, Sophia and Julian exchanged vows. My mother dabbed her eyes with a silk handkerchief. My father stood tall, pride swelling in his chest. No one looked at me. I don't know what possessed me, but when the vows ended, I rose. My legs trembled, but I forced myself to walk toward the stage. "Wait," I said, my voice hoarse but loud enough to cut through the music. The hall fell silent. I looked directly at my parents. "Do you really not remember? Do you not recall how I carried water until my hands bled? How I worked myself to exhaustion to keep us alive at the labor farm? And this is my reward." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Clara," my father barked, his face hard as stone. "Sit down." I shook my head, trembling. Sophia knew father was injured back then. I sent letters begging for help. She received them. She ignored them. And now she pretends she's the dutiful daughter. A murmur spread through the guests. Eyes darted between me and Sophia. Sophia's face paled. For the first time her composure faltered. But then my mother's voice, sharp and cold, sliced through the air. "Clara, enough. Stop humiliating us." "Humiliating you?" My laugh was bitter. "I am your daughter. I bled for you. And you repay me with silence? With betrayal." My mother's gaze hardened. If Ethan doesn't love you. It's Julian, Sophia corrected softly, ever the composed one. If Julian doesn't love you, my mother continued without pause, then you should let go. Don't cling. Don't disgrace yourself further. I stared at her, my chest hollow. Even now she defended Sophia. Even now she silenced me. Commander Wu, my father ordered coldly, restrain her. Darren Luo, the military guard assigned to keep watch on our family, stepped forward. His expression flickered with unease, but he obeyed. His hands gripped my arms like iron. Father, please. I cried, struggling. Mother. You can't do this to me. But my mother's face was unreadable. My father's jaw was set. I was dragged out of the hall, the whispers of guests chasing me like ghosts. Pathetic. Jealous of her own sister. No wonder Julian chose Sophia. They locked me in the storage shed, a narrow windowless room that smelled of mold and dust. The door slammed shut, plunging me into darkness. Let her cool her head, my father's voice growled outside. She needs to learn dignity, my mother added. And then silence. The first day I screamed until my throat bled. No one came. The second day I pounded on the door, begging, pleading, but my fists only bruised. The third day, Darren slid in a cold, moldy bun and a cup of foul water. That was all I received each day. By the fifth day my body trembled uncontrollably. My lips cracked. My vision blurred. By the seventh day I no longer had the strength to stand. I lay curled on the floor, the stench of mold in my nose, my lips dark purple. My body felt like ice. And then, nothing. That was how Clara Wu died. Forgotten by her parents, betrayed by her fiancé, abandoned in darkness. When Darren finally unlocked the door, he found only my lifeless body, lips blue, blood pooling beneath me. I had been erased, discarded like nothing. The first breath I drew was a ragged, desperate gasp, as though I had surfaced from drowning. My body felt light, too light. The heavy weakness of starvation was gone. I blinked against warm sunlight streaming across the desk. My eyes darted around the room. A neat bed. A wooden wardrobe. Books stacked carefully in the corner. I touched my face with trembling hands. Smooth skin. Not the gaunt, hollow cheeks of the girl who had starved in a locked shed. My gaze fell on the desk calendar. The red print was clear and sharp. July 26, 1970. My pulse slammed in my ears. 1 week before the reassignment notice. I staggered to the mirror. A stranger looked back at me, or rather the self I had lost decades ago. Black hair tied with a ribbon, cheeks round with youth, eyes unclouded. 15 years old again. I pressed my hand to the glass. I came back. The door creaked open. What are you staring at, Clara? My father's voice froze me. General Marcus Wu stood tall, uniform crisp, every inch the commanding officer. In my last life I had watched that same man plow mud in disgrace. Now he looked untouchable. Behind him my mother entered gracefully. Madame Lien Wu, soft smile on her lips, eyes gentle. Clara, you don't look well. Are you sick? Come eat. For a moment my throat closed. They were alive, healthy, untainted by exile. I wanted to scream every bitter truth at them, that they would abandon me, erase me, let me rot. Instead I bowed my head. I'm fine. The four of us sat at the table. Dishes of stir-fried greens and pork glistened under the lamplight. Food we would soon never see again. I took only rice. Why are you eating only rice? My mother asked, gently placing vegetables in my bowl. You can't be picky. You're still growing. Her voice was soft, but I remembered her cold scolding. Clara, you've let me down. Don't embarrass us. I forced myself to answer, yes, mother. But my father slammed his chopsticks down. Other people can't even fill their stomachs. And you're picky? Where did you learn such bad habits? Finish your food or you won't sleep tonight. My eyes stung. I bent my head over my bowl, shoving food into my mouth through falling tears. Each bite was bitter and salty. When I finished, I sat up straight like a soldier. Father, I've finished eating. May I return to my room? He chewed slowly, then gave a stiff nod. Go. In my room, I shut the door and leaned against it, gasping. The food rose in my throat. My body remembered years of hunger, the reverence for every grain of rice. Vomiting was unthinkable. I forced myself to swallow the nausea back, covering my mouth with shaking hands until the spasms passed. Finally, I slid to the floor. Tears spilled silently down my cheeks. Why am I here again? Why give me another chance, only to face them again? I pressed my face into my knees, sobbing softly. Memories of the farm, the labor, my parents' neglect, Sophia's betrayal, Julian's cold words, all crashed into me at once. It was a long time before the tears stopped. When I finally pushed myself up, my body ached as though I had truly carried years of labor on my back. My gaze fell again on the calendar. July 26th. 1 week left. 4 days before the reassignment notice arrived. In my last life I had been helpless, dragged along by my parents, forced to endure, sacrificed while Sophia was shielded. Not this time. I gripped the edge of the desk, whispering to myself, no matter what happens, I won't walk the same path again. Through the thin walls I heard my parents speaking in the main hall. If it comes to reassignment, Sophia must be protected at all costs. Clara is strong. She can endure more. The words fell like stones in my chest. Exactly as before. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my fists clenched beneath the blanket. In my last life I had believed their harshness meant love. I had carried their burdens, begged for Sophia, worked until my body broke. And they had still discarded me. This time I would not beg. This time I would live for myself. At dawn I rose before anyone else. I walked to my desk and crossed out the date on the calendar with a sharp stroke. 6 days, I whispered. 6 days until everything changes. I touched the smooth paper, my hands steady now. In my last life I had been dragged into exile with them. This time I would choose my own path. I would not be the forgotten daughter. I would not be the expendable one. This time Clara Wu would survive on her own terms. Every tick of the clock seemed louder after that night. 6 days. That was all I had before the reassignment notice arrived. 6 days before I would once again be dragged into exile, carrying half the burden of a family that had already decided I was expendable. But this time I wasn't going to wait for fate to crush me. This time I would walk ahead of the storm. The thought made my blood burn, not with fear but with a clarity I had never known before. Clara. My friend Lydia Zhao peeked from her doorway as I walked toward her house. The sun was sharp overhead but my mind was sharper still. She waved me inside. You're here early. What's wrong? You look serious. I lowered my voice. I need your help. Your cousin works at the neighborhood committee, right? The one in charge of assigning youth volunteers to the countryside. Lydia blinked, surprised. Yes, but why? I drew a breath, forcing my voice steady. I want her to help me apply. I want to go as an educated youth volunteer. Voluntarily. And I need it done within 3 days. Her eyes widened. Claire, are you insane? Once you're registered there's no going back. You'll be sent away for years. I met her gaze firmly. I know exactly what I'm asking. Please. I reached into my school bag and pulled out a small cloth pouch. When I pressed it into her hands, her eyes widened even more. Candy, she whispered. Even in the district compound, candy was scarce. Luxuries smuggled in at great cost. To ordinary families like Lydia's, they were treasures. Take it, I said. And help me. She shook her head. Clara, I can't. Lydia. My voice sharpened. Don't refuse me. If you're my friend, keep it. And keep this secret. Don't tell my parents. She hesitated, then tightened her fingers around the pouch. All right. I'll talk to her tonight. I exhaled slowly. 1 step closer. The next morning, Lydia led me through narrow alleys until we reached a squat, gray building. The paint was peeling and faded banners proclaimed, "Educated youth answer the nation's call." Inside, the air smelled of ink and dust. Behind a desk sat Zhao Meiling, Lydia's cousin, her hair pinned back, dark smudges under her eyes from too many late nights. Meiling Jia, Lydia greeted. This is my classmate Clara. She wants to apply for the countryside program. Zhao Meiling's tired expression vanished, replaced by relief. Truly? You've just graduated junior high. Yes, I said, bowing slightly. She hesitated. But child, do your parents know? Once the forms are processed, there's no turning back. This isn't a small decision. I straightened my back, letting my voice ring clear. My father is a military man. He raised me to love my country, to dedicate myself to the party's call. If he knew, he would be proud. Her eyes softened. Then why not tell him first? Because, I said, keeping my gaze steady, this is not about my parents. It's about my duty as a soldier's daughter. If I ask for their blessing first, it won't be sacrifice. I want them to see I made this choice myself. I could see my words striking home. You're a good child, Zhao Meiling murmured. No wonder your father is respected. The nation needs more like you. He pulled out a form. My hand didn't shake as I wrote Wu Clara across the top. For 2 days I played the part of the obedient daughter. I fetched tea for my father, stitched a tear in my mother's sleeve, bowed when Sophia passed me in the hallway. But inside I was counting hours. Then the storm broke. On the 3rd day Zhao Meiling arrived at our door carrying a folder. "Commander Wu," she greeted politely, "congratulations. Your daughter Clara has volunteered for the countryside program. Departure is scheduled in 2 days. Please sign these papers." The room fell silent. My father's chopsticks clattered onto the table. His face turned an ugly shade of purple. "What nonsense is this? Clara." His voice thundered. "When did you do this? Without telling me." I lowered my head, letting my eyes shine with carefully crafted tears. "I wanted to surprise you, father. Isn't this what you taught me? To sacrifice for the nation." Zhao Meiling smiled approvingly. "Your daughter is admirable. Few youths understand policy this well." My father's chest heaved. He wanted to shout to refuse. But Zhao Meiling's words were a knife. To object now would make him look like he was rejecting national policy. My mother's lips pressed thin. She said nothing, only stared at me with eyes full of silent reproach. At last, with a trembling hand, my father signed. The moment Zhao Meiling left, the house exploded. "You ungrateful brat!" Father roared, slamming the table. "Do you think you're in charge of this family? You dare to act behind my back." Mother's voice was sharp, breaking. "Clara, tell me the truth. You don't want to suffer with us, do you? That's why you applied, to escape." I met their fury with calm. I answered the call of the nation. "Isn't that what you always taught me?" For the first time they were both speechless. That night my father stormed out. He went to the local paper to submit a declaration severing ties with Sophia, so her education, her future would remain untarnished. But I had lived this life before. I knew the system, the schedule, the exact time the paper went to press. The next morning I walked into the office myself. "I'm Clara Wu, Commander Wu's daughter," I told the clerk. My father asked me to revise the notice. He frowned. "He was here yesterday." "You can call him," I said smoothly, "but I know exactly what changes he wanted." I slid the paper across the desk. Instead of severing ties with only Sophia, it now declared that the Wu family had cut ties with both daughters. The clerk stamped it without hesitation. The paper went to print. By the time my father saw it, it was too late. That evening, he slammed the newspaper onto the table. "Clara." I looked up with wide, innocent eyes. "Father, isn't this better? If you cut ties with both of us, no one can accuse you of favoritism. Isn't fairness important?" His lips trembled with rage, but he couldn't argue. Not without making himself look weak. For the first time in both my lives, I had turned their weapons against them. That night as I lay in bed, the cicadas screaming outside, I smiled into the darkness. I had cut the chains. No matter what storm destroyed the Wu family this time, I would not be dragged down with them. The morning of my departure came heavy with damp air. Mist clung to the compound walls, the stone tiles glistening as though the heavens themselves wept. My trunk was light. A change of clothes, a pair of worn shoes, 2 notebooks and a fountain pen. No one had helped me pack. At the gate my mother stood with red eyes. My father's face was stone, unreadable. Sophia did not even come out of her room. "Clara," my mother whispered, voice trembling, "write home when you can. Remember, no matter what, you're our daughter." I looked at her. This woman who had pressed me down at Sophia's wedding banquet, who had turned her eyes away when I begged for water in the shed, and felt nothing. "Of course, mother," I said politely. My father's jaw worked as if he wanted to speak. In the end, all he said was, "Don't disgrace us." I bowed. "Yes, father." And then I walked out the gate. I did not look back. The truck rattled across endless fields, carrying me and a dozen other volunteers. Dust billowed behind us, stinging my eyes. Most of the others chattered nervously, city accents sharp against the hum of the countryside. I sat in silence, fingers tight around my trunk. In my last life I had been dragged into this world screaming. Now I entered it by choice. That one fact steadied me. When the truck finally lurched to a stop, we were surrounded by low mud-brick houses. Chickens scattered across the yard. Children peeked from behind fences, their faces wary. This was my new home. The work began at dawn. Up. The team leader banged on the door. "City kids think this is a holiday? To the fields now." We stumbled into the gray light. My hands blistered within hours from gripping the hoe. Sweat stung my eyes. My back burned under the sun's merciless weight. The villagers muttered as they watched. Useless city girls. Skin like paper, arms like sticks. They'll never last. Each word cut, but I forced myself to keep swinging the hoe. My palms split. Blood mixed with soil. So I did not stop. At night, when we returned to the dormitory, some of the others collapsed on the straw mats, groaning. I bit my lip until it bled, refusing to make a sound. Food was scarce. Each day we were given a thin millet porridge and half a steamed bun. By the second week my stomach gnawed itself raw. One night a girl from the city cried loudly, clutching her belly. "I can't live like this. I want to go home." The villagers laughed. "Homesick already? Then starve." I turned away. In my last life I too had wept, begged, prayed. And no one had answered. This time I endured. It was in my 3rd month that I met Dr. Gao, the village's barefoot doctor. A wiry old man with steady hands, he tended to the sick with a battered medicine kit and a thin manual of herbal remedies. One afternoon I fainted in the fields from sunstroke. When I woke it was in the corner of his hut, the smell of herbs thick in the air. "Young fool," he grumbled, pressing a cool cloth to my forehead. "You don't know when to stop." "I couldn't," I whispered hoarsely. "If I stop they'll say I'm weak." He eyed me for a long moment. "You're not like the others. They whine. You grit your teeth. Maybe you're worth teaching." That was how it began. After my daily labor I went to his hut. My hands still trembled from exhaustion, but I forced myself to hold the pestle steady as I ground herbs. "Remember," Dr. Gao said, "this root clears heat. That leaf soothes cough." I memorized each word as if my life depended on it. In a way it did. The first time I bandaged a villager's wound, my hands shook so badly the cloth slipped. But I forced myself to try again. Slowly my confidence grew. Within months the villagers stopped calling me useless. "Clara Wu, she can treat a fever better than most. Quick hands, sharp eyes. Maybe she's not just a city burden." The first time someone said Dr. Clara, a strange warmth filled my chest. Winter came, harsh and bitter. Food was scarcer than ever. Illness spread. One night a child was carried into the clinic, burning with fever. His mother wept, certain he would die. Dr. Gao was away in another village. The villagers looked at me doubtful. My hands trembled as I prepared herbs, recalling every word I had learned. I boiled water, coaxed the medicine past the boy's lips, wiped his burning skin through the night. By dawn the fever broke. The mother fell at my feet, sobbing thanks. Something in me shifted then. For the first time I wasn't just surviving. I was saving. As the years passed I grew leaner, harder. My hands no longer blistered so easily. My back no longer buckled. The villagers came to respect me. Some even came to depend on me. And I never once wrote to my parents. They had cut ties with me. I cut ties with them. Standing under the vast countryside sky I whispered to myself, "This time I live for me. Not for father. Not for mother. Not for Sophia. Only for Clara." The wind carried the words away, but inside they burned like fire. One evening after a long day I stood outside the clinic. The horizon glowed orange, the fields stretching endless. In my last life this place had been my prison. Now it was my rebirth. For the first time I was free. The air smelled of damp soil after morning rain. I had just finished weeding when I saw Lydia Zhao waiting by the dirt path, a basket of vegetables on her hip. "Clara," she called, her smile bright. But when she raised her arm to wave, her sleeve slipped back, and I caught sight of faint purple marks circling her wrist. My chest tightened. I walked quickly to her side, lowering my voice. "Lydia, roll up your sleeve." Her smile faltered. "It's nothing." "Show me." She hesitated, then slowly tugged the fabric upward. Thin bruises, faint but distinct, lined her skin. The kind made not by accident but by deliberate strikes. My hands trembled as I touched them. "Your mother." She laughed awkwardly. "You know how it is. My little brothers went through my things. They found the candy you gave me. I tried to hide it. Mother was angry, that's all." "It's nothing." "Nothing." The word burned me. In my last life Lydia had never left the city. She had stayed home, burdened with endless chores, treated as little more than a servant. When she turned 18, her parents married her off to a pig butcher, thick-armed, foul-tempered, a man who reeked of blood. To scrape together a dowry for her younger brother, they sold her future like a piece of livestock. I remembered visiting her years later, finding her belly swollen, her face gaunt. And then the news, 6 months pregnant, beaten so badly she lost the child. By the time she was taken to the hospital, it was too late. The memory clawed at my throat. Oh, I wouldn't let her walk that path again. I gripped Lydia's hand, speaking with more urgency than I ever had before. Come with me, I said. Join the educated youth program. Ask your cousin to assign us together. Her eyes widened. What? Claire, I can't. My parents would never agree. If I leave, who will do the housework? Who will watch the children? You've been doing it since you were their age, I shot back. You were already carrying the family when you were 12. Why must you sacrifice your whole life for them? She shook her head violently, her braid whipping against her back. No. My mother needs me. If I leave, she'll collapse under the burden. I cupped her face, forcing her to meet my eyes. Lydia, you're still a child too. Don't you deserve a chance to live? Her lips trembled. But if I go, who will take care of them? My father? He doesn't lift a finger. My brothers? They're too young. They'll starve. They won't, I said firmly. They'll learn. The same way you did. You think they're helpless, but it's only because your parents made you carry everything. Let them bear their share. They'll survive. She stared at me, tears brimming in her eyes. But what if they hate me for leaving? What if my parents curse me? Then let them. My voice hardened. Better their curses than a life chained to misery. I took a deep breath, recalling every scream, every sob I had heard from her in my last life. I let the raw memory sharpen my words. Lydia, listen to me. If you stay, they'll marry you off to a butcher. A man who'll treat you worse than cattle. You'll suffer until the day you die. Do you want that? Her face went pale. I pressed on, relentless. But if you come with me, you'll have a chance. Yes, the countryside is hard. It's bitter. But it's freedom. You'll study again. You'll have choices. You'll live. The silence stretched between us. Her chest rose and fell with rapid breaths. Finally, she whispered, Clara, why are you saying this? How can you know what will happen? Because I had already lived it. Because I had watched her die. But I only said softly, because I won't let you suffer. Not this time. Lydia broke then. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she threw her arms around me. Clara, her voice cracked. I'm scared. I hugged her tightly. I know. So am I. But we'll be scared together. She pulled back, wiping her tears with the heel of her hand. Her gaze, though trembling, held a spark I hadn't seen before. If I go, you'll stay by my side? Always, I said. From now on, we're sisters. Real sisters. We hooked pinkies, sealing the vow like children. But this time the weight behind it was heavier than any blood tie. That evening, Lydia tried to raise the idea at home. As expected, her parents exploded. Ridiculous, her mother snapped. Who will cook? Who will wash? You want me to collapse and die? You're ungrateful, her father growled. After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Her little brothers clung to her sleeves, whining, Don't go, Jejia. We need you. I stood outside the door, listening, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug crescents into my palms. But Lydia's voice, soft, trembling, surprised me. Mother, father, I've carried this family since I was a child. I've done more than my share. Now I want a life too. The room erupted in shouting, but I smiled through my tears. She was fighting. For herself. The next morning she came to me, eyes swollen but determined. They'll never forgive me, she whispered. But I've decided. I'll go. I took her hands in mine. Good. From now on we walk the same road. Her cousin processed the paperwork quietly. 2 names. 2 girls. 2 fates rewritten. As we stepped out into the sunlight, Lydia squeezed my hand. Thank you, Clara. Without you I would have stayed. I would have. You would have died, I finished for her, my voice steady. But not anymore. We'll survive. Together. That night, as we lay on our straw mats in the dormitory, I stared at the thatched roof above us. In my last life, Lydia had been crushed by a fate she never chose. But in this life I had pulled her free. For the first time I felt the weight of my rebirth wasn't just mine. I could change more than my own story. I could change others. I turned to her and whispered, This is only the beginning. Her hand found mine in the dark. And together we faced the future. By the mid-1980s I had built a rhythm in the countryside. The village had once called me that useless city girl. But years of labor had carved the softness from my body. I was no longer the pampered daughter of a commander. I was Dr. Clara Wu, the barefoot healer who knew every fever, every cough, every stubborn infection in the region. My hut smelled always of dried herbs and smoke. My hands were calloused but sure. When a baby cried in the night, mothers came running to me. When an elder coughed blood, it was my door they knocked on. It wasn't an easy life, but it was mine. For the first time I felt peace. And beside me was Lydia. When she first arrived, she had been timid, still flinching at every raised voice. But I pressed books into her hands, urged her to study whenever she had a free moment. "Why study?" she asked once, frowning over a worn math text. "The entrance exams won't come back." "They will," I said with certainty. "And when they do, you'll be ready." She didn't believe me, but she listened. When the exams were reinstated, she failed the first time. And the second. But she didn't give up. On the third try she passed. I still remember her face when she held the admission notice, tears streaming freely down her cheeks. "Hey, I really did it." I hugged her, laughing and crying. "Of course you did. You always could." She went on to study medicine at a university more prestigious than mine had ever been. And when she returned, diploma in hand, she chose to work near me. It was a victory I cherished even more than my own survival. By 1985, my life had settled into something steady. I lived simply, treated the sick, grew herbs in the garden behind my hut. I had no illusions of wealth or luxury, but I had dignity. The nightmares of my past life, my parents' betrayal, Sophia's wedding, Julian's cold rejection, had begun to fade into shadows. Or so I thought. It was a humid afternoon when I saw them. Two figures stood at the edge of the fields, hesitant, their clothes ragged, their hair matted, skin darkened by years of toil. For a moment I didn't recognize them. Then Sophia lifted her head. My breath caught. Her once flawless skin was weathered, her figure thin, her proud posture bent. But her eyes, sharp, resentful, burning, were the same. Beside her stood Julian. His once scholarly air was gone, replaced by a haggard weariness. The gentle hands that once held books were now cracked and scarred. Sophia's lips trembled as she stared at me. "Clara." I didn't move. I didn't smile. The silence stretched until it snapped. Sophia lunged at me, fingers clawing. Why are you here living like this while I... Her nails raked across my arm, leaving burning trails. This was supposed to be my life. If you had gone with them, I would have been the one to return, admired, honored. Why did you steal it from me? Her words were wild, her body trembling with fury. I did not flinch. I let her scratch, let her shriek. Only when her breath came in broken sobs did I speak, my voice calm as still water. Because this time I chose differently. "Enough, Sophia." Julian pulled her back, holding her tightly. He looked at me with exhausted eyes. "I'm sorry, Clara. She's been unstable. Years of suffering on the farm broke her spirit." I raised an eyebrow. "On the farm?" He sighed heavily. "After you severed ties with your parents, the authorities investigated Sophia too. They found letters she hadn't destroyed in time. She was sent down. But I couldn't leave her. I dropped out of school and went with her. So that was it. In my last life, Sophia had thrived while I rotted. This time it was the reverse." Julian's voice cracked. "Your father, he never recovered from his injury. He died the second year. Your mother, she couldn't bear it. She followed him 3 months later." I felt nothing. No grief, no shock. Only a faint, distant emptiness, as though he were describing strangers. "They're gone," I said flatly. Julian's face twisted. "Clara, what happened to you? You used to be kind, passionate, sincere. Now you're cold, heartless." I met his gaze evenly. "That version of me died a long time ago. Your Sophia and my parents killed her. I owe them nothing." Sophia collapsed to her knees, sobbing hysterically. No, this was supposed to be mine. Why is everything different now?" Her hair clung to her damp cheeks, her nails dug into the dirt. She looked nothing like the elegant sister who once stole everything from me. The villagers gathered, whispering, watching. I stood tall, unmoved. "She's ill," I said finally. "Call the police. Her husband abandoned her while she's suffering from mental illness. That's illegal." The villagers obeyed. Sophia was dragged away, screaming my name. I did not follow. That night, as the crickets sang and the village slept, I sat by my lamp, staring at the flame. Sophia's words echoed in my mind. "Why did you steal it from me?" I smiled faintly. I hadn't stolen anything. I had simply refused to be erased. This time fate belonged to me. It was almost a year after that confrontation when Sophia returned to the village. Or rather, was carried. She was thinner than ever, her skin waxy, her eyes glassy and vacant. The villagers brought her to my clinic, begging me to help. She's sick, they said. You're her sister. I'm not her sister, I replied coldly. Sophia clawed at my sleeve, her nails scraping weakly. Claire, why won't you save me? We're family. Family. The word tasted bitter. I begged you once, I said softly, my voice steady, and you left me to die. Now you know how it feels. Her sobs filled the room, but I didn't let them move me. I told the villagers to call the authorities. Her husband had abandoned her, and by law he was responsible. They dragged her away. That was the last time I saw her alive. Months later, Julian returned alone. He looked older, his face lined, his shoulders stooped. Gone was the proud young scholar I once knew. He walked like a man carrying stones in his chest. He found me outside the clinic tending to herbs. Clara, he said hoarsely, Sophia is dead. I didn't flinch. I know. I saw it in her eyes the last time. She was already gone. Julian lowered his head. She was sick. She couldn't bear the life we lived. I tried, but I couldn't save her. His voice cracked, but no tears came. Perhaps he had already run dry. I only said, she made her choices. Julian's gaze lifted to mine. For a moment the exhaustion slipped, and I saw the young man he once was, the one who had promised to wait for me. Clara, he whispered, if I had waited, if I had married you like I swore, do you think we could have been happy? You never married. Do we still have a chance? His words hung in the evening air, heavy with longing and regret. Once those words would have shattered me. Once I would have given anything to hear them. But that Clara, the girl who cried herself to sleep, who begged for love she never received, was gone. I looked him in the eye, calm and unyielding. Julian, I said, people must keep moving forward. Never look back. Because there is no path back. He flinched as though struck. His lips parted, but no words came. I turned, the herbs still fresh in my hands, and walked toward the fading light. I did not look back. The villagers said later that Julian lingered in the county for months, then disappeared. Some whispered he returned to the city. Others said he followed Sophia into the grave. I didn't care. Their lives, their choices, their tragedies no longer touched me. For the first time I felt truly unshackled. I had been the forgotten daughter, the expendable sister, the discarded fiancée. But I was no longer any of those things. I was Clara Wu, doctor, survivor, woman of my own making. The past was buried. I had severed every tie. And as I stood beneath the vast countryside sky, the wind rushing across the fields, I knew with certainty. This was not the life my parents chose for me. Not the fate Sophia wanted for me. Not the future Julian imagined for me. It was mine. Only mine. That night I lit a single oil lamp and wrote in my journal. The girl who died in the shed is gone. The woman who walks forward is me. The past will never chain me again. I am reborn, not as someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's discarded fiancée. I am simply Clara. When I blew out the lamp, the darkness did not frighten me. It felt like freedom. The end.